Happy Tuesday to you, fellas. I know you're tripping seeing me wearing my Chicago Bulls hat, but I'm a big NBA fan, and the Bulls is my favorite team, even though they ain't been in the playoffs in a little while. But yeah, I've been watching all the NBA playoffs games, man. They've been interesting. Phoenix is playing some ball. That game 7 between Milwaukee and Brooklyn Nets. Oh man, that was a hell of a series, man. Of course, it would have been a different series if Kyrie Irving was playing, but those are the breaks. Anyway, this is not a basketball channel. This is a channel for offering dating advice for men and discussing issues relevant to today's single heterosexual male in this ever so challenging dating landscape. And this is now, I kind of mess up a lot of times when I say this is definitely my last video for the month. I would say, but there's probably an 80 to 90% chance that this is going to be my last video for the month of June. There's maybe a 10 or 20% chance I come back with another video between today and June 30th, but 80 to 90% chance this is going to be my last video for the month. Now, this video is going to cover a subject I've covered at least a half a dozen times. I'd say minimum a half a dozen times, which of course is the difference between the 4 pills in the manosphere. The 4 promoted pill philosophies and mindsets in the manosphere, which of course would be blue pill, red pill, black pill, and purple pill. Now, here's what's interesting. Just recently I did 1 or 2 videos where I talked about how I've had some guys try to label me as purple pill instead of red pill, which I've vehemently disagreed with. But now I've had another group of guys, not too many, maybe a half a dozen guys, who have written me messages saying, hey, Alan, man, for all those guys who call you purple pill instead of red pill, I disagree with them. But I'm going to throw a new angle at you. I don't believe you're purple pill, but I also don't believe you're fully red pill either. I believe you're more black pill than you're willing to own up to or publicly acknowledge. At minimum, I think you're half red pill and half black pill, if not more black pill than you are red pill. Yeah, I had at least about 6, 7, 8 guys in the last few weeks that have written me notes in one way or another telling me that. Like one guy wrote me and said I was the subject of a discussion on somebody's live stream. And he said on this particular, I can't remember whose live stream it was. And they said on this live stream, guys were saying, Alan Roger Currie is black pill and he don't even consciously realize it. He's not red pill. He's black pill, man. And he don't even consciously realize it. I'll say this, by how I describe and define black pill, I would say I'm definitely not fully black pill. And I don't even know if I would argue that I'm partially black pill. Although I do have a term for guys who are mostly red pill, but have at least a touch of black pill in them. If you remember from about as far back as 3 years ago, I said I call those guys hardcore red pill. Hardcore red pill. That's what I call a guy who is mostly red pill, but he has maybe at least 10 to 25% black pill edge to him. My term for that is hardcore red pill, as opposed to just conventional red pill. Yeah, I call that being hardcore red pill. Is when you got at least a little bit of black pill influence. So I wouldn't deny that I'm hardcore red pill. I used to categorize myself that as far back as 2018. I used to categorize myself as hardcore red pill. But So I'm going to go over once again. Now, interesting side note. One of the videos I did, one of my primary videos I did when I was distinguishing the different mindsets based on the pills, is the video that actually first attracted my current wife to me, my wife to me. Yeah. The video I did called, I think it was in December of 2018, I did a video called Red Pill versus Blue Pill versus Black Pill versus Purple Pill, and in parentheses I had ARC gets hardcore real. And actually, yeah, I mentioned this on a couple videos before. That was the video, that was the first YouTube video of mine that my wife saw. That video came up in, you know how if you go to your YouTube main page, it'll recommend certain videos to you? And yeah, my wife said when she went to her main page, that video came up as a recommendation for her. And she got curious and intrigued by just the title. And then she said after she watched the video, she developed a, as she called it, a crush on me. And she became intrigued by me. And yeah, she briefly was actually a dating coaching client of mine. That's how our relationship started. She started as a dating coaching client of mine. And then she let it be known that, you know, she wanted to connect with me. You could say she was more one with me. And the rest is history. But yeah, that was the first video she ever watched of me. Was the video that I did called Red Pill versus Blue Pill versus Black Pill versus Purple Pill. And in parentheses, ARC gets hardcore real. That was my wife's first exposure to yours truly. So yeah, I'm going to talk about probably some of the same things I talked about in that video. But before I get to that, in reference to my last two videos, a lot of guys are still sending me feedback related to their thoughts on being in a long-term relationship or marriage with a woman that has some type of promiscuous past. It started with my video I did called Only Judgmental Men Experience Red Pill Rage, which has to do with the pills. Yeah. Red Pill Rage, to refresh and to revisit that description again. What is Red Pill Rage? Red Pill Rage is when you basically start off as a guy who's blue pill, and then you become what's known as red pill aware. In other words, you absorb a lot of red pill related knowledge, wisdom, and insight. Instead of just accepting it and making adjustments in your behavior and moving forward, you develop a high degree of bitterness and resentment towards women. It's mainly usually related to, speaking of a woman's sexual past, it's usually related to a situation I described in that video. Where here's what usually, not in every situation, but in most situations, what causes red pill rage is when you either met a woman, or even more so, you're in a relationship with a woman that you thought and assumed was a prudish, strictly monogamy-oriented, good girl type, only to find out later that she has some degree of promiscuous and or polyamorous tendencies. And you can't handle that. That's the number one situation that usually leads to red pill rage. And I discussed that 2 videos ago. Then my very last video, what I discussed was kind of as a follow-up to that, was I said men need to stop making these comments saying that no man wants to be in a relationship with a woman who has promiscuous tendencies or at minimum has a reputation in her past for being promiscuous. And I said, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true for all men. You could argue that that's true for most men. I won't disagree with that. If you would say most men don't want to be in a long-term relationship or a marriage with a woman that either currently is promiscuous or at minimum used to be promiscuous, I would, for the most part, agree with that assertion. But if you say all men, that no man wants to be in a woman with a woman like that, that's where I disagree with you. Because that's not true. I know for a fact that's not true. Matter of fact, I said this on my community page. In that video, my last video, I said that one of the biggest evidences of that is that you got women who are porno stars, porno actresses, strippers, and professional sex workers who are married. And I had at least a handful of guys write me saying, oh, Alan, no, I don't believe that. Like, if a woman's a porn actress, it must be because she only does porn scenes with other women, but no man would be knowingly be in a long-term relationship or marriage with a woman that fucks other dudes. My good friends over at the other YouTube channel, Danielle George, aka Sister George, and her co-host, I forget her real name, but she goes by the nickname or pseudonym Concrete Rose. They interviewed this female woman who's a combination of a porn actress, sex positive advocate, and I think she's a professional courtesan, which is almost similar to being like a professional call girl. And what else is she? I forget. But anyway, during I didn't hear the whole interview, but I heard a portion of it. And at one point, she confirmed what I said in my last video. Her name is Crystal Cooper. Crystal Cooper. And at one point, she said, and I might be slightly paraphrasing the words, but somebody brought up from the chat room, they said, I would assume that women who are porn actresses and strippers and sex workers have a hard time finding a husband or a long-term boyfriend. And Crystal Cooper said, no, that's far from the truth. She said, actually, just the opposite. She said, you'll find that most porn actresses, strippers, and professional sex workers are married. Or if not married, they're involved in a long-term relationship with a guy. And I went, vindication. I vindicated again. Yeah, some guys were trying to say when I said that on my video, they were trying to act like I didn't know what I was talking about. Man, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Don't ever doubt my words like that. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I rarely, if ever, talk out of my ass. I don't talk out of my ass, or at least I try not to. And yeah, Crystal Cooper, she confirmed what I said in my last video. Yeah, she said a high percentage of women who are either porn actresses, strippers, and professional sex workers in general are either married, engaged to be married, or romantically involved with someone. I already knew that before she said it. Yeah, man, so, you know what I find about a lot of guys? And I don't like to do these generational discussions, generational debates. But it's interesting to me, man. I got food on my mouth. Damn. A lot of guys who are like millennials and what do they call them? After millennials, Generation Z. I know it's a lot of guys in those generations, and I'm generalizing here, so let me preface by saying I'm doing some loose generalizations. But it seems like a lot of younger guys, man, they want to go back to the traditions of how dating was before the 1960s. They're very conservative, traditional, and judgmental. Very conservative, traditional, and judgmental, man. Not all, but a sizable percentage of guys in the younger generations. And I think that's why some of them resent guys in my generation. Like, when it comes to being liberal-minded towards sex, very open-minded, free-spirited, liberal-minded, and hardly judgmental at all, probably the number one generation of guys that would fall into that category would actually be I would say guys that are roughly between 55 and 75. Guys who are currently between the age of 55 and 75, which would be what's known as the late baby boomer. Baby boomer and late baby boomer generation. The baby boomer and late baby boomer generation. Yeah, the baby boomer generation ends with people who were born, I believe, in 1965. No, I think 1964. which would be the year right after I was born. I think 1964 is the last year for baby boomers. And then starting with 1965 is what's known as Generation X. Generation X. So I'm 58. So I said between 55 and 75. I would say more so between 57 and 77. If you're between roughly 57 and 77, that means you're either a baby boomer or in the latter years was called a late baby boomer. That generation of guys, we're probably the most free-spirited, open-minded, liberal-minded, and least judgmental about women being promiscuous and or polyamorous, at least in recent years. Now, there's guys centuries before us that were the same way. They was just like guys in my generation. But see, I don't want to rehash the whole video I did about the Victorian era, but if you do your research, you'll find, see, really, for the most part, the whole good girl phenomenon didn't really start until the Victorian era. The Victorian era was what made the whole you gotta marry a good girl attitude develop. Yeah. When Queen Victoria was presiding over the British Empire, a lot of uppity, pretentious, basically snooty type women start asserting that only virgins are qualified for marriage. That notion started with the Victorian era that only virgins qualify for marriage, and that if you've had sex with even one man outside the context of marriage, that you were basically a slut, a tramp, a harlot, and that you did not qualify for marriage. That was the belief during the Victorian era, that and only virgins should wear a white dress in their wedding. Like if you weren't a virgin, you weren't supposed to wear a white dress in your wedding. That was considered blasphemous if you weren't a virgin. And a lot of guys, and then it came over to the United States. And then when it's changed, and I talk about this in the Beta Male Revolution, was starting with the second wave of feminism. The second wave of feminism combined with the free love movement, or what's also known as the sexual revolution, is what's changed that attitude, or if not fully changed it, diminished the effect of the whole good girl attitude. And you could say during the 1960s and early 70s, that's basically when women who indulged in casual sex and premarital sex basically said, hey, I deserve to be married too. I deserve to have a husband too. And you can say the rest is history. But yeah, here's what I was going to talk about related to that, and then I'm going to move on to the peels. A lot of guys were making comments to the fact that I would never want to be in a relationship with a woman, a long-term relationship or marriage with a woman that had 10 casual sex partners, or 15 casual sex partners, or 20 casual sex partners, 25 or more. And if that's your standard, that's your standard. I don't argue with anybody's personal standards. But I want to throw this out at you. For those men who've had a lot of sexual experiences with women like myself. I'm going to tell you something that purely relates to the whole numbers factor. I'm going to speak for myself. I'll start off speaking for myself. If you gave me a choice between being in a long-term relationship with a woman that had, let's say, 15 engaged in casual sex with as many as 15 different guys, but let's say all 15 guys that she engaged in casual sex with fucked her no more than 5 times. Fucked her anywhere from 1 to 5 times. 1 to 5 times. That was option number 1 for me. Being in a long-term relationship with a woman that's had as many as 15 guys that fucked her 1 to 5 times. And then my second option was being in a long-term relationship with a woman that had sex with only 3 guys in her life before meeting me. She only had sex with 3 guys, but one of those 3 guys had sex with her a minimum of 50 times. Another guy had sex with her no less than 100 times. And another guy had sex with her 300 plus times. 300 plus times. And all 3 of her partners, her sex was within the context of a boyfriend, long-term boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Let me ask you, who would you choose? You can put it in my comment section. Who would you choose? If your only choices was those 2 women, who would you choose? The woman who's had casual sex with as many as 15 guys, but none of those guys had sex with the woman more than 5 times? Or a woman that's had long-term relationship sex with 3 guys, and one guy had sex with her 50 times, one guy had sex with her 100 times, and another guy had sex with her over 300 times. Who would you choose? For those guys who put a big emphasis on numbers. Again, between those 2 choices, 95 to 99% chance I'm choosing a woman who had 15 sex partners. You know why? Because more than likely, that woman hasn't been stamped. You've heard, my long-term listeners know what that term means. Stamped. See, when it comes to dealing with women who've had sex with other guys before you, when it comes to having sex with women who've had sex with multiple guys before you, here's the 3 things you run the risk of experiencing. There's at least 3 different scenarios you run a risk of experiencing. One is you're going to end up dealing with a woman that's been what's known as turned out. I think most guys, unless they've been living a sheltered life, know what that means. Scenario number 1, you're going to be dealing with a woman that's been turned out. What does it mean to be turned out? I wrote an article when I used to write for the examiner.com about that, about what it means for a woman to be turned out. It's real simple terms. When a woman has been turned out, that means that woman started off as both a combination of a virgin and a prude, and then one of her past sexual lovers, it could be the guy who she lost her virginity to, or it could have been a guy who she had sex with after that guy, was the one who opened her up to new, different, and more kinky and adventurous sexual experiences. For example, let's say at one point she was the type of woman that would never have sex in public, but then because of one lover she had, he persuaded her to engage in sex in public, and she found that she liked it and she almost became addicted to it. Or before, she would never engage, she would only engage in one-on-one sex, and then she had a boyfriend or casual lover who suggested she participate in a menage a trois with him and another woman, and she found that she really liked that, and she wanted to have another menage a trois and another menage a trois. That would represent that one or more of her lovers turned her out. In other words, in simple terms, that simply means she no longer has prudish or conservative, or what's known in the BDSM world as vanilla. She no longer has vanilla taste in sex. She wants to do things, engage in sex that something about it is kinky, adventurous, experimental. That means a woman has been turned out. That's one thing you're always going to risk when you in a relationship, starting a relationship with a woman who has been sexually active before she met you. In other words, she's not a virgin. Is if I have to toot my horn for better or for worse, I've turned out a lot of women. I've turned out a lot of women in my life. Matter of fact, in one specific area, because there's different ways you can turn a woman out. Brian, the number one area I think most people would be able to guess this. Brian, if I had to pick the one area I've turned the most women out, is in regards to talking dirty. Yep. That's the number one area, without question, I've turned the most women out. Like, for a lot of women, I was the first guy they ever dealt with who really was really passionately into kinky, dirty talk. Like I've had a lot of women I've had sex with that told me either before they met me, they had either never engaged in phone sex at all, never had a man talk dirty to them at all, or if the guy did talk dirty, he wasn't good at it. But I've had women become like addicted to me, like just for phone sex alone, to the point where they was willing to pay me money for it. So that's probably the most specific area I've turned a lot of women out on. Is one quick story I tell them that, and then I move forward. I told this story once before, so that's why I don't mind telling again. I had an ex-girlfriend I dated, and she ended up marrying the guy she dated after we broke up. And he told me we ended up, it's a long story, but we ended up talking on the phone a few times after. Well, what it was, she wanted to have an affair with me, and I turned her down, and that led to us talking on the phone, me and my ex-girlfriend's husband. And he told me, man, he almost divorced his wife, who was my ex-girlfriend. And one of the reasons why is because he said, man, Alan, you made my wife put pressure on me to want to talk dirty to her. And he said, man, I ain't really into talking dirty, man. And because of that, she would call me boring and call me weak. She said I wasn't dominant enough. I wasn't kinky enough. And he said, man, it almost ruined our marriage. And I said, damn. Now that brings me to my second, the second scenario you're going to risk whenever you enter a relationship with a woman who's been sexually active prior to you. And that would be a woman who's been stamped. Now, there's different terms for it. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ron Wills, my fellow dating advisor, Ron Wills, he calls it being imprinted. Being imprinted is his term. I think he calls it the womb imprint or being imprinted. And I think I've heard one or two other people use that term, imprinted. I use the term for years. I've used it in a few of my close friends. We call it being stamped. Yeah, man. And see, this brings me back to my point I was saying about 10 minutes ago when I was talking about the two options. When I said I'd rather be in a relationship with a woman that had casual sex with 15 guys, but none of those guys had sex with her more than 5 times, versus a woman who only had 3 previous lovers, but at least one of those lovers fucked over 300 times. Man, I'm telling you this right now. If you don't know this already, you don't really want to be in a relationship with a woman that another guy has put his, what I call, dick stamp on her pussy. His dick stamp on her pussy. Yeah. Trust me. You don't. See, I've been on both sides of that. I can confess, I've been on both sides of that. And I know a few guys that I've been on both sides of that. In some cases, I was the guy who did the stamping, or again, what Ron would call the imprinting. And I kind of ruined a woman for every guy she dealt with after me. And then in at least one situation, if not possibly 2 situations, I've been the victim of a woman who was stamped. Yeah, man. You don't ever want it, man. That's one of the most challenging situations to be in. To me, that's more challenging than being in a relationship with simply a woman who's been turned out. When a woman's been turned out, that presents its own challenges. But most of them are moderate, low to moderate challenges. On a slightly higher level of challenge is dealing with a woman that's been stamped. What that simply means in simple terms, in the same way being turned out means a woman started out as a combination of a virgin and a prude, but now she has a more kinky, free-spirited, open-minded, uninhibited attitude towards sex. That's turned out. When a woman has been stamped, that basically means she loves one particular man's dick, and every man who she has sex with after that man who stamped her, she's going to always compare his sexual companionship to that guy. And in most cases, you ain't going to never be able to equal or exceed the impact of his stamp. There might be a 1 or 2% chance you can do it, particularly if you end up fucking her more times than the guy who stamped her. But in most cases, man, you ain't going to be able to, Yeah, man. Once a woman's been stamped by a guy, another thing when a woman has been stamped, that guy's gonna always have some degree of seductive influence. Like some of y'all have heard some of my story. I've told at least a few stories. I remember one in particular story I told about how I was at a party with this woman I used to date, and she was with her new man, and I was able to get her to come in the room with me, and I fucked her mouth and came in her mouth, and she went back in the living room at the party and ended up tongue kissing her new dude. And a lot of guys were like, damn, ARC, that's savage, man. That's just wrong, man. That's wrong, man. Yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, man. One of the reasons I was able to pull that off, because I knew I had stamped her, man. I knew I had stamped her. I knew I could still get that pussy. I knew I still had seductive influence over her. So anytime you're in a relationship with a woman and her ex-husband, her ex-fiance, her ex-boyfriend, or in some cases even just a long-term fuck buddy she had, is still has so much seductive influence over her that if he wants to, he can still get that pussy, even though you're now married to her or engaged to be married to her or in a long-term relationship with her, that means that woman's been stamped, man. That means that woman's been stamped. To me, but let's say between the first two, that's worse than being in a relationship with a woman that's been turned out. Both of them have their challenges, but I would say between the two, I'd rather be in a relationship with a woman that's been turned out by another guy than to be in a relationship with a woman that's been stamped by another guy. I'm telling you, I've been in that situation at minimum at least once, and I would say bordering on saying twice. But at least once, I was in a relationship with a woman that had dated this other guy for like 6 or 7 years, and he had stamped her, man. And that's at least 40 to 50% of what ended my relationship with her, man. Because she was stamped with another dude. And in reverse, I've had this reverse situation happen. There's been at least a dozen women or more that I stamped them so profoundly that even when those women got into a new relationship with a guy after me, I was still able to fuck them or get my dick sucked by them. Because I had a stamp on that pussy, man. Once you got a stamp on a woman's pussy, then the third challenging scenario you're going to run into is a woman that's been traumatized by another guy. That's probably the worst of the three. Is a woman that experienced some type of sexual trauma. It could be her father, stepfather, or uncle molested her when she was like 10, 11, 12 years old. She got molested by like a family member. She got raped, brutally raped by some guy, brutally date raped by some guy. She got both assaulted and had her ass whooped by some dude. And there's a few other situations I can think of. That woman is now going to become inhibited, frigid. In some cases, she's not going to even really want to have sex. Even if she wants a husband or a long-term romantic companion, she's going to have a lot of instances where she becomes like uncomfortable with sex because of past trauma. She's probably going to have to, in order to overcome it, she's probably going to have to do weeks and weeks and months of therapy, maybe even years of therapy to get over it. I don't think I've been in a relationship with a woman like that, but I have some close friends that have. And yeah, that's the hardest one to deal with. So those are the three risk scenarios with a woman that's been sexually active before you got into a relationship with her. Is a woman that's been turned out by one or more of her past lovers. Turned out, again, that simply means she's no longer prudish or inhibited. She's now more liberated, sexually liberated, free-spirited, open-minded, and kinky. Second risk scenario is a woman that's been stamped, or again, what Ron Wills and some other guys in the manosphere call being imprinted by another guy. And yeah, again, that means that whoever stamped her is always going to have a certain area, a certain degree of sexual and seductive influence over her. In other words, even if she marries another guy, the guy who stamped her will always still be able to get that pussy if he really wants it. He'll be able to get that pussy. She won't be able to resist him. She won't be able to resist him. Third risk scenario is a woman that's been traumatized, experienced some type of sexual trauma. And yeah, so now getting to what I really wanted to talk about. I spent so much time talking about that. Shit, that took up over half my time. Let's get to these pills. I'm going to talk about the top 5 characteristics of each pill and add a little bit of commentary on each. Let's, of course, start with blue pill. That's usually the starting point for most guys. Let's start with the blue pill mindset. The blue pill mindset and the top 5 characteristics that I associate with the blue pill. That might differ from other guys. The characteristics I associate with these various pills might differ from guy to guy in the manosphere. I'm telling you Alan Roger Currie's take on each of the pills. Blue pill. Believes that most women are monogamy-oriented and relationship-oriented good girls. Yeah, a guy who has a blue pill mindset, he believes that good girls are in the majority and promiscuous sluts types are in the minority. Number 2, believes that most women will remain faithfully monogamous when the women are involved in a long-term romantic relationship or marriage, usually based on the fact that he believes love and strict monogamy are synonymous with each other. Romantic love and monogamy are synonymous with each other. Third, believes that only a particular type of woman tends to be promiscuous or unfaithful, such as porn actresses, strippers, street prostitutes, and women who come from maybe dysfunctional family backgrounds. But yeah, he believes that women who are promiscuous and unfaithful and adulterous are in the minority. Believes that all men should aspire to get married and raise a family. He believes that should be the ultimate goal for all heterosexual men, is to get married, have some children, and raise a family. And fifth, and finally, he believes that a man's physical appearance and masculine sex appeal is not as important to attracting women as their degree of intelligence, their level of education, and their overall personality and behavior, as well as their morals, values, and integrity. Yeah, he believes that looks and sex appeal is a very secondary factor in attracting women. He believes that what's more important to women is their intelligence, their level of formal education, and again, their personality and behavior, as well as their morals, values, and integrity. That's usually the starting point for most men, is blue pill. Say, starting with the age, 12, 13, 14, a lot of men, I'd say definitely over 50% of men, particularly if they grew up in a middle class or upper middle class 2-parent family, they usually start off as blue pill. And then, but once the internet came about, I would say the number one time when most men start becoming red pill aware is around the same time a lot of single heterosexual men start being active on the internet and, of course, start becoming familiar with the manosphere. And then a lot of personalities in the manosphere, such as myself and other PUAs, dating coaches, red pill enthusiasts, start promoting red pill knowledge, wisdom, and insight. And here are the characteristics of the red pill. Top 5 characteristics that are usually associated with being red pill aware, having a red pill mindset. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the red pill. Number 1, believes that most women simultaneously possess both a relationship-oriented good girl side to their personality, and they also possess an inner kinky freak side, or what others call an inner slut side to their personality. And that will motivate them to indulge in at least a few episodes of short-term and or non-monogamous casual sex. In other words, that's related to something I talk about a lot, and I was probably arguably maybe the first person to emphasize this in the manosphere, is the idea of women being sexually duplicitous. Most women, I strongly assert, are sexually duplicitous, meaning that they're not 100% good girl, nor are they 100% promiscuous slut types. Most women get shades of gray in the middle. They got a good girl side to them, and they got a casual. They got a relationship sex side to them, and they got a casual sex side to them. That's what most women in society have. And if you're red pill, you realize that. You quickly realize that. Most women have both sides to them. They don't. Very few women only exclusively have sex within the context of marriage or a long-term relationship, and also very few women exclusively just indulge in short-term non-monogamous casual sex. The vast majority of women indulge in a percentage of both. That's what a sexually duplicitous woman is a woman who indulges in a percentage of both. Only on my scale from 1 to 5, a 5 is a woman that does genuinely only indulge in monogamy-oriented relationship sex. That would be what I call a 5 in my book, Who Said Again. And on the flip side, a 1 would be a woman that only indulges in short-term and or non-monogamous casual sex. She rarely, if ever, is in a long-term relationship. And if she is in a long-term relationship, it's going to be an open relationship or open marriage. But most women are 2s, 3s, and 4s, which means they indulge in a blend of both. Some percentage of their sex comes within the context of a long-term relationship or marriage, and some percentage of their sex happens within the form of short-term non-monogamous casual sex. And again, when you're red pill aware, that's arguably the first thing you realize and accept. Second characteristic is that red pill guys believe that various forms of verbal and nonverbal game, I'm not the biggest fan of that word, but I'll use it here, game will help them improve their chances of persuading a woman to engage in one or more episodes of casual sex with them. As you know, my main area of expertise when it comes to game is direct verbal game. Direct verbal game. There's 2 types of verbal game, which is direct verbal game and indirect verbal game. Then there's at least 3 forms of nonverbal game, which would be looks game, or what some people call body game, sub-communication game, or otherwise known as nonverbal game, and then status game, money, status, fame game. Third characteristic, believes that women enjoy sex and desire sex just as much, if not more, than men do. That's one of the things you realize when you become red pill, is that women enjoy sex and want sex from men just as much, if not more, than men want sex from women. Fourth thing, red pill guys believe that just about all women are capable of being romantically unfaithful at some point during the course of a long-term relationship or marriage, and believes that all men need to be realistic about this. Now, the difference is some men are realistic about that and they remain red pill aware, but other men have a negative reaction to that, to romantic unfaithfulness. And they experience what I talked about 2 videos ago, red pill rage. They experience red pill rage. They're not accepting of that. Then, final characteristic of a red pill man would be they believe that women respond differently to men who they perceive as being a sexually desirable alpha male than they do to men who they perceive as being a financially generous beta male. Red pill guys believe that alpha males are the men who women want most for short-term, non-monogamous casual sex, and it's beta males who women most strongly desire for long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous romantic relationships and most marriages, with the exception, of course, of an open marriage. So those are the general characteristics of men who adhere to the red pill. Next, I'm going to cover also controversial black pill. Black pill. Here are the top 5 characteristics of the men who adhere to and subscribe to the black pill mindset philosophy. Now, this is the pill I've had the most controversy with because I tend to describe black pill differently than some other men do in the manosphere. A lot of men in the manosphere tend to disagree with my description and definition of black pill, what it means to be black pill. But the thing I always say in my defense is my definition and description of what it means to be black pill is more in line with how mainstream media views and defines black pill than these other definitions and descriptions. Here are the top 5, characteristics of a man who maintains a black pill mindset. Number 1, men who maintain a black pill mindset, they believe that no woman should ever be trusted to be faithfully monogamous for an indefinite period of time while involved in a long-term relationship or marriage. And therefore, men should never aspire to be married or even aspire to be involved in a long-term relationship or a cohabitation relationship or a marriage. Yeah, that's black pill guy. That's why a lot of MGTOW guys feel that way. A lot of guys who subscribe to the MGTOW philosophy feel that way. Second, a lot of black pill guys believe that if women do want to be married, and if they want men to agree to marry them and propose marriage to them, that they should allow themselves to be completely owned by their husband and essentially allow themselves to be treated as a piece of property by their husband if they ever expect a man to propose marriage to them and remain a dependable financial provider for them and their children until death. They also believe that feminism is the worst thing that could have ever happened to the concept of marriage, cohabitation, and long-term relationships in general in modern day society. Yeah, black pill guys literally and passionately hate feminism. They hate it. They don't just dislike it. They hate anything and everything associated with feminism. Third characteristic. Black pill guys believe that various forms of verbal and nonverbal game, as well as any form of self-improvement and personal development activities for single heterosexual men, are at minimum irrelevant and ineffective, and at maximum totally useless. They believe that women are either interested in having sex with men or not interested in having sex with men from the time they first make their acquaintance. Now, on this characteristic, this is where a lot of guys have suggested that they feel like even I'm black pill. Because I had one guy say, he said, Alan, let's be honest, man. I think you have at least a little bit of black pill in you, because you've often said that you don't believe that a man can raise a woman's interest in engaging in casual sex with him. You believe that from the time you meet a woman, she's either interested in having casual sex with you or not interested in having casual sex with you. And he went on to say, he said, that's not representative of being red pill. That's more so representative of being black pill. A red pill guy is a guy who believes that a woman might have a low degree of interest in casual sex, say on Monday, but then after you take her out on 2 or 3 dates, you can raise her interest in having casual sex with you by giving her more access to your personality and her spending more time with you non-sexually. So, like, for example, when you criticize alpha male strategies, this guy was like, Alan, alpha male strategies, his advice would more so represent red pill, because he believes that interest can be improved over a period of hours, days, weeks, or months. You believe that women are either interested in having casual sex with you or not interested in having casual sex with you within the first 5 minutes or less of your very first conversation. And anyway, he made the argument. He said, that's black pill. That's not red pill, Alan. I hope you know. That's not red pill. That's black pill. Yeah, that is my attitude towards casual sex. I have always said, I do believe you can increase a woman's interest in wanting to be in a relationship with you, a long-term relationship or marriage with you. But when it comes to strictly casual sex, I don't believe you can raise or increase a woman's interest in you. I believe a woman is either interested in you or she's not. But even the women who are interested in you, they're not going to always tell you that up front. That's why you have wholesome pretenders, erotic hypocrites. Same with the women who are not interested in sex with you. They're not going to always tell you that up front and straightforwardly, which is why you have manipulative time wasters. But if some people want to say because of that, I'm at least partially black pill, I'll go ahead and say. But again, I will reiterate, I've always said That's what I call hardcore red pill. To me, hardcore red pill would be like a guy who's 80% red pill and 20% black pill. That's what I call hardcore red pill. I've always described myself as hardcore red pill. Anyway, continuing. Believes that just about all women are only sexually attracted to men who possess a handsome face and a tall, athletic, and reasonably muscular physique. Believes that men who do not fall into this category can only motivate women to engage in sex with them by spending money on them, like short term, that would be called tricking, and offering to upgrade them to a better quality of life. Long term, that would be called being a sugar daddy. I don't 100% agree with that assessment, so that's one thing that would eliminate me from being black pill. Also, that's not taking into account a man's verbal seduction skills and dirty talk skills. Yeah, see, black pill guys, they don't really emphasize verbal game, man. And I do. I very much emphasize verbal game in a man's his conversation skills, how verbally smooth, verbally seductive, verbally kinky and persuasive he is, verbally charming. So I don't believe it's all based on looks, face and physique and looks. I don't know. I believe face and physique play a factor in a woman's attraction to a man, but I don't believe that's exclusively all it takes. And then finally, black pill guys believe that women could care less about a man's moral character, personal values, human ethics, or overall integrity when it comes to choosing a short-term or even possibly a long-term sexual lover. Black pill guys believe that even a man who is a convicted felon or a lifelong criminal can get a beautiful, sexy woman in bed if he possesses a handsome face and a tall, athletic, and reasonably muscular physique. I've heard a lot of guys debate that in the manosphere. Yeah, that's been a long-standing debate, that last characteristic. And then let me quickly cover, I'm running out of time, quickly cover the purple pill, the characteristics of the purple pill. Here are the 5 characteristics of maintaining a purple pill mindset, exhibiting a purple pill mindset. Number 1, when a man is purple pill, he believes, in many cases, he believes that both blue pill attitudes and beliefs and red pill attitudes and beliefs are beneficial, useful, and should be encouraged, endorsed, and condoned, depending on what your relationship goals and objectives are. Yeah, so at maximum, a purple pill guy, he will simultaneously endorse both blue pill attitudes and beliefs and red pill attitudes and beliefs. Secondly, some purple pill guys are guys that started off blue pill, then they transitioned into becoming red pill, and then they more or less went back to being exclusively blue pill. Yeah, they initially absorbed and adopted many red pill attitudes and beliefs during a time in their life when the man was all about the exclusive pursuit of short-term, non-monogamous, no emotions involved whatsoever, casual sex. But then later on, after meeting a woman who they believe is their future spouse and soulmate, the man then transitions into adopting and maintaining more blue pill attitudes, beliefs, and behavior, and eventually rejects the teachings and mindsets of the red pill. You know who I would at least mildly put in that category? And I hope he doesn't get mad at me for putting him in this category, is my own older brother. That's a characteristic I would say my own older brother possesses. Yeah, I would say arguably my older brother is probably purple pill, more so than red pill. He's purple pill. He's a guy who started off when he was real young being blue pill. Then he had a womanizing period where I would say he was red pill. And then starting with his late 30s, he almost went back to being, to some degree, more so blue pill again. Yeah, he's like anti-casual sex now. Like my brother, if you were to talk to him, he'll tell you, he hates the idea of casual sex. I mean, like hates it. He's totally against it, man. He's the type of guy that would never encourage any young, single heterosexual man to exclusively pursue women just for casual sex. Now, he's not naive that he would totally be against a guy maybe sowing his wild oats for a couple of years or so. But generally, he's against casual sex, man. He doesn't see any emotional benefit to it, particularly as you get older. He doesn't see any emotional benefit to casual sex. Third characteristics, I was just talking about sowing your wild oats. Believes that all men should have a period of sowing their wild oats with women between the ages of roughly 18 and 29, but then those same men should then refocus their priorities to finding a wife and settling down with the ultimate objective of getting married and raising children. See, that would be my brother, for the most part. If not 100% for the most part, that would describe my brother. That's the attitude my brother basically has. Fourth characteristic, if the man is a dating coach or relationship advisor for women, he suppresses his more red pill attitudes and beliefs in favor of publicly acknowledging and emphasizing more blue pill oriented attitudes and beliefs for fear of offending and turning off potential female clients and customers. Yep. A lot of dating coaches for women and relationship coaches for women tend to be purple pill, without question. You rarely are going to find a guy who's a dating coach for women or a relationship coach for women that's red pill, and hell, definitely not black pill, but even red pill. Most of them are purple pill. Yeah, most of them are purple pill. And finally, if the man has been caught up in some sort of sex scandal, like say he's a politician or a famous entertainment industry actor or something, he may feel the need to adopt very conservative and strictly monogamy-oriented relationship standards and sexual morals and values in order to diffuse the controversy and media coverage that currently surrounds him. Yeah. So, there you go with red pill, blue pill, black pill, purple pill. Let the debates continue. I'm out of time. Have a great weekend.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
God, man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. Yeah. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.